All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webcast, Engaging Frontline Workers Through Operational Communications to Drive Organizational Maturity, sponsored and presented by Workforce Software. This webcast has been pre-approved for 1 HRCI credit and 1 SHRM credit, so please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credits. You'll receive an email from HR.com within 2 business days that will include your certification information. So the folks that are in live attendance here on the Zoom call, we ask that you submit any question that you have for the presenters using the Q&A in the webinar controls. You can put, comments, engagement in the chat. However, for questions, there's just less chance for them to get buried, that the presenters will see them if you put them in the Q&A. All right, without further ado, it is now my pleasure to turn it over to the presenters, Dr. Angelina Sun and Brian Thum.
Thank you, Rhonda. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to see you here. So today, welcome you to join us for a discussion about engaged frontline worker through operational communications. And how to drive your maturity at your organization. So I'm Angelina. I'm Director of Workforce Management Solutions from Workforce Software. I'm partnering up with Brian, my colleague from Solution Consulting. So it's our great pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you today. Here are the topics that we will cover in this session. We will draw our attention to the frontline workers and look at what employee experience means in terms of for these type of groups, and also examine some challenges maybe faced by organizations. And then I will introduce you the employee experience maturity journey, and I will examine the 4 different stages of the journey that organizations might travel through. After that, I will explain the concept of operational communications. Before I hand over to my colleague Brian, he will show you very quickly visually how that looks like in real life. And as Rhonda mentioned, we will have some Q&A towards the end. If you have any questions, feel free to pop it in the Q&A, or if any comment, you can put it in the chat area. So Brian and Rhonda will help to keep an eye for it. Well, let's get started. First of all, let's look at who are the desk list frontline workers. So they make up 80% of the workforce. There are about 2.7 billion workers globally, but who are they? In addition to the heroes at the front line of healthcare who work in the hospitals or emergency rooms, we see frontline workers as sales associations in clothing shops, the plant operators in manufacture plant, or bus or truck drivers behind the wheel, teachers in the classroom, or utility service technicians in the field. So those workers, they do their job without a desk or a computer, and a majority of them don't even have a corporate email address or have access to their corporate intranet. Therefore, they often overlooked and underserved in the corporate technology consideration. And one thing I want to differentiate is they are definitely not the remote or hybrid worker which normally appear in people's discussions. So that means things like Teams or Zoom meetings probably don't work for them, and they don't have the fortunate or benefit of having a computer at work. So those people, we also sometimes call them shift workers or hourly paid, and their schedules can be highly variable. And often they don't get much notice even for their schedule change. We did a research that 50% employees said they get their schedule notice maximum with a 1 week notice. So the technology they touch very mostly probably is just the workforce management solutions they have on their hand. So they use that to clock in and clock out, and probably view their shift, and apply for leave. On the other side, this group of workers is fast evolving. So for the first time in human history, there are 5 generations in the workforce. And also there is a rapidly increasing majority of digital natives, those people who grew up with digital technology, internet, and mobile devices. And they have very different sets of values, preferences, and working styles. So for this group of frontline workers, what matters to them in terms of employee experience? So what does it really mean for them? As I mentioned, they have very specific needs and expectations. So the number one they care about is scheduling flexibility. So the ability to balance their work and personal life and to have control and visibility of their shifts. So recent studies have shown that flexibility and control has become the number one factor in the job satisfaction for deskless workers, and is a key factor they will consider when looking for a new job. Secondly, to get paid fairly and properly, and having a stable financial stream. And then, like anybody else, they want to feel valued and respected for their work, having a voice and input in the work they do, be able to give feedback and be heard. Also, it's very critical for them to get the work done very easily because they are paid by the hours. So to have the right tools and resources to perform their jobs is very important to them. Last but not least, they desire for collaboration. They want open communications with their team members. They want connectedness with their managers and with their co-workers. So this is really from the employee's side, about what employee experience means for them. How about the employer's side? So have they really tackled the secret, of providing a desired employee experience to the front line? On the opposite, we have observed very many typical challenges that organizations are facing in addressing the employee experience for the deskless workers. So we have picked up 6. So number one, deskless workers are struggling to connect with co-workers of the wider team due to the lack of technology equity provided to them. And secondly, corporate or headquarters don't really have good visibility to what's happening at the front line, on the shop floor, across the business, particularly across different teams, different functions or locations. And number 3, many organizations do not have dedicated communication tool for their deskless workers. The hybrid remote, they have a lot of technology with them and have a lot of applications, but the investment is not equally put towards the deskless workers. And then the fourth is there is a lack of understanding what is true voice of employees. I know companies will do quarterly or biannually employee surveys on fixed date, but really employee experience or sentiment, they are the feelings and opinions they have occurred at the moment that work happens. So it's not on the fixed date when you do the survey. So it's very important you have real-time collection and capture their sentiments. And the fifth, the system that currently exists in the organization, they don't really talk to each other. So employees have to go to different places or different applications to get things done, rather than bring the solutions to where the employees are, because they are not, remember, they're not sitting behind a desk or in front of a computer. And finally, the direct supervisors, they carry the heavy lifting of communicating and managing their frontline workers. So for the deskless workers, their daily experience is not so much touched by HR or corporate leaders. Instead, it's very much rely on their relationship with their direct managers. So there are very high admin requirement for the frontline managers. And no doubt, so this is probably the most typical challenges we have seen within organizations, but maybe there's other challenges or issues that you're facing, and that's but these are the ones that most common that we have seen from our customers. But I do want to ask ask the audience that whether you have seen this, whether you share the same issues at your organization, or you don't have this set of problem at all, but you have different issues, and maybe that you have to some extent on some of those only. So I would like to probably pull a little survey to have a look. I'll give you maybe 10 seconds to do this. I want to hear about you, whether you have all these challenges or some of these, you don't have any of those. You might have a different issue or different problem. All right. I'm not sure.
Did you want
everybody
to
voted? Yes.
Dr. Angelina, did you want
Yeah.
to read out the questions here if anyone has any
Oh,
visual?
yes. Oh,
yeah.
yes, of course. Sorry. The question is about, please indicate whether your organizations encounter any of these 6 challenges in driving employee experience. Single choice. And option 1, we face only some of these challenges. Option 2, we face all of these challenges to varying extents. Number 3 is we face none of these challenges.
And then if anyone does not see the poll question or the option, sometimes there's a pop-up blocker or such. So you can always type in the chat any of these answers, or if you have other ones as well, just pop them in the chat or in the Q&A.
Especially if you're from organizations which have a large population of deskless workers, we would like to know, whether those are the same issue encountering, your organization as well. All right, Rhonda, do you think we can pull up the results?
Absolutely. Here are the results for you. Do you see those?
All right. So what the audience have responded is about 56% says we face only some of those challenges. 41 agree that these are all the challenges we currently have, maybe to different extent. 3% said we don't have any of these issues, which is great. Congratulations. I think, and as you can see, is a very varied responses. And even for those who answered yes to all these questions, I assume you have this problem to different degree. And that is very natural. That is the reality of the current status. So organizations are at different stages of maturity in addressing the employee experience. So next, we will inspect what this experience, realization journey will look like. And here I'm introducing you the model of employee experience maturity journey that developed by Workforce Software based on our years of work with customers and extensive research. So organizations, regardless of your industry or your size, you might see it as one of these 4 stages of maturity. The basics, just work, or production focus, work faster, or drive an engagement, work with a purpose. Or ideally, you might already reach the stage of employer of choice, human-centric work. So when organizations move along from the left or along the line, they not only achieve very increased employee value, but also they have increased business value. At the same time, when organization travel through from left to right, they are building increasing trust and autonomy among the desk-less workers. So next, we will spend some time to look at each of the stages and see whether that resonates to your organization. The first one, the basics, just work stage. Most organizations started here, but some are still here today. Employees are treated as costs. The mindset is, you are just a cost. You're just a number to fill a shift. There is little or no technology invested in terms of communications for the frontline. And the desk-less workers don't have a way to communicate or provide feedback. All communication is delivered top-down from their supervisors. There may be kiosks for clock in and clock out, but supervisors in the majority will rely on paper and binders or posts in breakout room, word of mouth, or phone calls, text messages to connect with the employees. There's literally no cost for technology investment in terms of employee experience, but there is also little value offered for the desk-less workers in terms of improve their working experience. And maybe let's take a look of a day's work from some frontline workers to see what they experience day to day at an organization of this stage. We have Sam here. He is a plant operator at a manufacturer. So from Sam's point of view, I don't have a mobile phone with me. I can't carry the phone when I'm working. And my schedule is posted on the wall. If I'm not here, if not working, if a manager needs to reach out to me, he needs to call or text me. And also, every day my manager carry a clipboard, walk around to check me into my shift. And I'm pretty sure he will spend at least 20 minutes every day just entering our time card. And he's too occupied doing all this manual and main work. He has a little time to listen to us about feedback or discuss any production issues or operational issues we have. And sometimes I have to come on Saturday just to do my training. Maybe it's a new product or new workflow, or maybe it's a new equipment that we have to learn how to operate. Sometimes if I have family commitment, if I need to change my shift, I have to call my manager, and he has to call each of my co-workers to find out who is possible to replace me. If I don't have, if I can't swap my shift, I have to take leave. That means I would lose income for the leave. And I also don't have a way to really provide feedback or talk to other team members or in the other location or doing similar jobs. And I often just complain to my co-workers when I'm unhappy. Or if things get really, really bad, I might complain to a union representative about my manager. So the impact on my overall working experience is I really, all my satisfaction or working experience, it really depends on my relationship with my manager. And sometimes he doesn't even have time to talk to me or listen to what I have to say. And I feel I just a cog in a wheel, and I don't feel engaged. I just do my job to get my paycheck. I do my bare minimum. And I'm happy, I'm probably ready to jump onto another job at any moment. I don't have any loyalty or attachment to the work I do or to have a connection with my co-workers. So in this, if organizations in this situation, so what you could do to have some quick wins, to help improve the employee experience, even without a technology investment. My suggestion is they need to find really, innovative way to give employee flexibility. For example, allow them to define their availability or unavailability in advance, or find a way for them to make it easier to swap shifts with their co-workers whenever they need it. And then we look at the next stage, the production focus, work faster. Here, the organizations have some technology, but really the technology in place is about do more work, produce more. So for example, they might have automation technology or applications to assist with their work, but these systems are purely for the purpose to get the job done, the tasks. And also these systems are isolated, don't talk to each other or sharing data. Desk workers may go to dedicated kiosks to access these systems, or they can log in from home computers to use HR tools to request for leave or fill up a form. There are no corporate approved communication tools. And you know what? To fill the void, workers often turn to their own solutions, like WhatsApp. So a little bit of team collaboration can happen now, so they can talk to their co-workers. But headquarters or corporate don't have control or visibility to the front line. And there's also the risk of leaking information to customers, competitors, or having negative influence on future employees. Sometimes people who left still stay in their WhatsApp and keep talking to the group. So here the technology in place is mainly for business outcomes and very transactional and very task focused, is not for employee experience. And again, let's take a look at someone that working in this environment. We have Margaret, a healthcare worker who do home visit. She does multiple home calls in a day. And sometimes, she needs to cover for her colleagues. She might have the medical devices or equipment to do have a job, but the technology really is not investing in me as an employee. So she, I'm Margaret. I use WhatsApp to talk to my manager or co-workers. And I don't know, someone just left yesterday and I'm still chatting to her. And then it's very difficult to make friends because we are all remote. We are all on the road. We don't really spend time together or know each other. So when I get home, I need to log in into a system to enter my time. And another system is if I want to see my leave balance or apply for leave. And my managers hardly check on me, even after I have done a very, very long, long hour shifts, like 12-hour shifts, or sometimes I cover for my co-workers. I also have to be really careful that I remember to check my emails because the health or treatment protocol changes or communications are sent to me by emails. So in terms of my employee experience, my company want me to do more because we have lost so much staff recently, but the tools provided really, is just create a lot of extra work out of my core job. So I have to spend extra time to enter my time. Sometimes I forgot to check in my extra time and don't get paid properly. I also need to be handled very careful when I send emails or text messages because I'm handling very sensitive medical records. I'm really, very overwhelmed and overworked. I don't feel my manager care too much, and she really doesn't talk to me very often either. So I'm constantly looking for a better place to work.
And if I can provide some commentary, just some extra color commentary, Angeline, to the slide you just had up there, if you could go back to it really quick. That I specifically that third challenge point is another item that I think is worth just reiterating on a little bit too. Having a place or a way for whether this is just feedback in general or just complaints, having those types of message and feedback in a controlled and safe environment is something that I think is worth a lot of organizations definitely looking into right now, especially in the world of social media. So the bullet point listed here specifically, I know, is around WhatsApp or WeChats. I know very popular as well. Some of your employees in your organizations may even be using these types of team chats without your organization knowing it. But what's nice, or what you should really look forward to, is kind of having a place, in a way, a system, a solution where employees can communicate that feedback, again, in kind of a closed internal environment, because it's so easy in this day and age for employees to voice concerns or feedbacks on social media platforms such as Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, amongst other platforms. And again, just to reiterate the importance of having kind of a closed environment where you can have that feedback, so where you can hear from those employees, those frontline workers, where there may be a little bit of a bridge with some disconnect right now, is certainly an area that it should definitely be on everyone's radar if it's not already.
Absolutely, Brian. As we recommended here also for the quick win, really to introduce a secure and approved communication platform. So, and also you have some, maybe even transactional triggers to help the managers, to be able to reach out and connect with those, but also to communicate in a safe environment, meeting the compliance requirement as well. Yes, definitely spot on. And the third stage is very interesting, because this is the organization, they try to win people's mind, and they want to make sure that workers feel they have a purpose with their work and they drive for engagement. But let's see in more detail what this stage actually means. So for organizations at this drive for engagement stage, they actually pay a lot of attention to the employee experience, and they try to find a solution for it. And they may have introduced tools or HR initiatives to encourage employee engagement and facilitate communications or collaboration. Probably can even collect their service, feedback through service, or deliver some job training. So now the employees are able to have two-way communication and provide feedback or make a request upward. They can have a say in their job. They feel they're doing meaningful work. And at this stage, organizations probably not only enjoy the benefits of business value, but also people value. They have, improved talent retention or labor efficiency, and have some positive customer revenue impact. It sounds pretty good, right? But is that something missing, or how is the workers feel like? Let's take example then of Cindy, who is a truck driver of short haul. And she actually is working in an organization just recently rolled out a communication tool, and she's learning the things how to do it. But for her, at the moment, she worked very long hours and as much as legally possible. But for people who do in a similar role, those people on the road, they are continually at risk of fatigue or burnout and well-being, mentally and physically, the wellness. They are very worried about that. And her manager is trying to check in on her but it's very randomly. And I know that she understands the manager has to reach a large team of them. But the manager is trying to use the new communication tool to send her information, to reach out to her and talk to the team. But what she feels then about her employee experience here is I wish the communication could be more personalized and to understand my working schedule, my role, and what's important to me, because at this moment, she receives a lot of communications nowadays, but most of them are not relevant or very important. And seriously, sometimes she feels, I don't have time to read or respond to them, or after a long working day, I just choose to ignore. But that means sometimes I do miss important information that's related to my work. So I hope the new communication tool can understand better what matters to me. And particularly what's missing here is the communication tend to be random and outside of everybody's normal workflows. And they have to really step out of their daily routine and to engage or respond to it. So what would be the quick win look like? For the companies, they would, I don't know, my apologies, that's my mouse is very sensitive. So maybe some system integration will really help to allow the data to flow, make it possible to personalize the communications. And also, just very simple, some preset channels can be set up. So people on the same role, same job can talk to each other in their own language and collaborate on the common issues. For example, she's really concerned about their safety. And they share, there's a common sentiment shared by the team. And there's also very high turnover risk because of the long working hours and, it's just the overwhelming workload. And now we come to the most desired stage of employee of choice and the human-centric work. So the company here at this category will try to win your heart, and they want to make sure that they really build up an employer brand to attract talent. And they also want to make sure that employees think this is an amazing place to work and are willing to promote the company and be advocate for it. So if we see the previous stage is about win your mind, and this stage is really about win your heart. And this is the aspirational stage. This is where the market demands and what the employees want. Remember, we mentioned about the multiple generations in the workforce, right? So each generation have the unique expectations and preference of working styles. So for the younger generation, they prefer to communicate through a mobile phone, and they prefer to receive training in the form of short videos to their personal devices. So at this stage, the communications are smart and intelligent, powered and driven by data. So they're not only, the companies in this stage not only be able to react or respond to the changes in the workflow or in their workforce, but also they can become proactive and predictive with the tools of alerts, triggers, predictable models, or digital assistants. So most importantly, they're able to utilize the new technologies such as AI or machine learning to continue, expand, and evolve their capabilities. So the organizations can predict and prevent bad things from happening, such as high labor costs or poorly engaged employees or high turnover, because they get prompt and alerted to such a trend or such kind of a risk. So they can achieve very high efficient communications by automate the communication burden for the supervisors. They create moments that matters in the flow of work, and they are also future-proof. They're able to build business agility, adapt to change, or achieve sustainable business success. So let's look at a real example of workers in such an environment. At this stage, there's more positive employee experience rather than challenges we saw before. And let's look at Joshua, a retail associate at a clothing shop. So from Joshua's point of view, he feels that I think, my technology experience really meet my needs, because my company has implemented operational communication tool, which is embedded in the workforce management solution I'm already using. So there's, my managers talk to me, reach out to me when the time is right for me. And also he is concerned about my well-being. He checks on me when I have done a lot of overtime or coverage for my co-workers. and my schedule is great. I can pick up extra shifts if I need some extra money, and I can work on shifts that has a high customer traffic. And I'm able to set, safeguard my personal time too. I can set my own available time, so I won't be bothered be put on the shift. And if I have any questions or product on display, I can easily pull it out from my mobile devices or ask a coworker or manager for help. So for Joshua, he really enjoys some benefits of a great employee experience, and he feels that this is fantastic. This is a great place to be, and he actually have recommended 2 friends to work here because they had a very hard time with their previous employers. And he's enjoyed a great relationship with work. It's not bombarded by communications, but the manager using the tool of smart communications, reach out to him at the right time, and that's suitable for him. So the customers are happy because employees are also happy, and their sales or promotions, are delivering great result. And every, daily work becomes so easy, such as new product launch or a new promotion, because he can pull out guideline or visual examples just from the mobile device or iPad. So the quick win here, really, the company have really utilized the modern workforce management solutions, which have embedded communication tool, so they can leverage data and leverage insights to make sure they talk to the employees at the right time with the right information to the right people.
And I think this is really important as well here from this perspective, because for a lot of these trends, for examples, the managers might not actually even be aware of trends like this, such as employees who are working overtime. Now, for some of you, you may have specific rules around planning specifically overtime, and others, it just kind of comes up as is. But this is, again, just another area where I think the value of communications and engaging the frontline workers is very important, because overtime can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people in these types of examples. And so maybe somebody like Joshua here in this example doesn't mind the overtime working. Maybe we're coming up on the holidays, we can use the extra money, and it's great. But for others, maybe they've just had a kid, or maybe they have a family and they have family commitments, and the extra overtime, while the money is nice, for example, might be impacting their relationship with their family at home. And again, the idea behind these types of smart communications, especially ones that are embedded, is not only the idea that we can track and see these trends, but also reach out to employees, such as an example where maybe employees worked an excessive amount of unplanned overtime, in say like the last 30 days as an example here. Having those types of trends and engagements, again, is always a good way to check in on those employees and just make sure that it is working out for them, because really burnout's a concern for everybody across all industry these days. Again, I go back to what I mentioned at the start here. For some employees, that extra overtime may be great, but for others, not so much, and that could potentially lead to them potentially looking at other employees or other jobs if it just becomes too much. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. And because different people have different preference, right? Some really wants flexibility or make sure that they look after their family, as you mentioned, especially carers. But some maybe would prefer the extra money, to pick up extra shifts, do overtime. But the modern workforce management solution help them to be able to do that. And with the self-service, without everything going through the manager or manual process of calling each other. I want to illustrate before. I also want to hear from the audience, where do you think your organization is sitting at? You may be maybe hard to choose exactly which one, but choose the one that is closely aligned to where you are now. And I'm curious to see how do you characterize your organization in terms of your maturity of employee experience? The question is, select stage of employee experience maturity that most closely aligned with the organization. So that's 4 choices: the basic just work, or the product focus, work faster, or driver engagement, work with purpose, or the last stage, employee of choice, human-centric work. So Rhonda, I saw the poll was on the screen for a second. Are you
it's still it's
okay,
still
people are
voting there, folks. Yeah, people are
yeah.
voting.
That's
and
good.
just give it another moment here, and if anyone has anything able to chat. Actually, it did it just stop? No, just give me 1 second. I'll relaunch the poll. Actually,
okay,
it is showing that it ended.
Yeah, for me, I saw
results
it for a second and it disappeared.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can launch it again.
The result actually is quite promising, and we have about 13% at the basics stage and 19% production focus, and it's a majority 56% driving for engagement, work with purpose. I'm very happy to see that. I appreciate the efforts and initiatives. And then 13%, they think they have achieved employee of choice and can deliver human-centric work experience, which is fantastic. We might want to hear from those organizations how they did it. That's great to hear. But I want to
sorry, I'm just gonna, you keep going. I'm just gonna roll it for a second time for folks that are commenting that they couldn't see it. There was a little glitch there, and you can continue on, and I'll just close it out. Thanks so much, everyone, for your patience.
Okay, thank you. So should I continue on to the next slide?
Yeah, you continue on. Thanks so much, Dr.
Yes. Because I just want to just quickly share some very quick tips and practice, best practice, how you progress through the maturity journey. You may wonder, how do we navigate through the journey? And I know that some of you already have a fairly mature stage, but just some quick tips and recommendations. And for example, really recognize the step 1 is recognize that deskless workers are different from the desk workers, right? And their experience matters. And number 2, really recognize, the improvement employee experience, not just responsibility of HR, and they can't do this alone, particularly when it comes to the frontline workers, the operational managers who should, get involved because they're the one closest to the frontline teams and closest to customer and production. So it's really a we problem. So from HR to operations to IT to finance, payroll, everyone needs to get involved. And really, the third step is capture baseline about, collect their sentiment before you start a new project and see where you are. So you can have a baseline to compare to. And number 4, really take an inventory of have a look of the technology tools that you currently use, how many systems you have, and how many clicks to do a certain task or job. And also discover what kind of free, shadow tools are being used by the frontline. Are they using WhatsApp, text message, or Reddit? And what kind of conversation they're having? Why are they using it for? And also develop a plan that, starts with this understanding the current state of the employee experience happening at your organization. And then very important, number 8 is develop a mobile communication strategy. And last but not least is you have to address the cultural issues through change management. And that means, really, as we mentioned, each of the stages, they reflect a different culture mindset, right? And that means we really need to involve key stakeholders or process owners to work together to fundamentally to transform the workplace culture if you want to introduce a new technology or a new application that affects all these workflows and processes for the business. So I want to really, people ask me what's really is operational communication. I want to show you, illustrate from a chart, talk about what do we mean by modern workforce management. So in the past, traditionally, workforce management is only look after basically majority of things on the left about the business needs. That's about labor optimization, cost production, maximization production or compliance, or labor cost control. And nowadays, the younger generation, the modern workforce requires for deliver to the employee experience, and they want to feel engaged and connected and be valued and be heard and have a control and a say in the work they do. So that's why the modern workforce management really could meet the needs of both sides, the business need and the employee need, and deliver all the things that matters on the two sides. And smart communications are the key. It is the glue in the middle that brings the operational performance and the employee experience together to make sure that you become the employer of choice and you set up your business for long-term success. I want to explain what is operational communication, probably from this chart, because this is employee communication or engagement or experience applications is a very, very busy place. And that's the way how we categorize the landscape. I put them into 3 big boxes. One is corporate communications, which is particularly serving the desk knowledge workers, and the communication is usually top down, and it may be from executives or CEO, and the decision maker or the heavy users or the mains are really the HR and communication leaders. And then in the middle, as we mentioned before, a lot of companies have introduced engagement tools or applications. They drive for engagement, and they would have introduced some cultural-based or social-based communication tool, like to bring people together, have a community kind of a place. And they claim that it will serve both the desks and the desk workers with their solution. But the problem with engagement standalone communication tools is the biggest challenge is adoption. People have to step out their daily workflows to take deliberate efforts to participate. And as the example of the truck driver, right? She has a lot of information, a lot of communication coming to her, but a lot of them are not really relevant. And sometimes she just don't care. She doesn't care and just ignore them. So operational communications are very different. It's purpose-built for the deskless shift workers, and this communication are workflow-driven and also integrated in the everyday, the daily flow of work for the frontline. It doesn't mean they can't do top-down. Of course, you could, we can, but the focus is serving the mid to ground level communication, closing the last mile of the communication within organization. So it has the deskless workers in mind and really facilitate the frontline, the supervisor, the manager, the team leaders, and the line managers and the deskless teams. As I see the operations or functions or line manager, this is the heavy users, the decision makers and influencers, and also content curators for this communication. And you can see they all very different types of communications. And I hope the brief overview of the maturity journey and also the general concept of operational communication would make some sense, but I would like to hand over to Brian to let him show you very quickly some live examples and of what operational communications looks like in real life. So Brian, maybe I will hand over to you. I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much. So again, thanks, Angelina, for everyone here. Really excited. I want to show everyone very quickly what the concepts that you just discussed can look like in a modern workforce environment. And I really want to reiterate the importance of organizational and contextual communication through functionalities such as direct messaging, channels and broadcasts, documents, and tasks for managers and employees. So whether you are an employee or a manager on a computer, a tablet, or a mobile phone, potentially a deskless worker, all the information you need to handle your day-to-day activities should be available to you in one place and in real time. So typical examples of this information include time off balances, time off requests, schedule information, timesheet entries, and for users such as managers, any relevant exceptions that they need to be made aware of. And to further help empower users to make decisions that matter in the moment, having curated notifications that are urgency-based can help to clear the noise and direct attention to items that require attention sooner than later, such as notifications that an employee has not showed up at their scheduled time. So reaching out to the frontline workers should be as seamless as possible. And this includes being able to choose one of those exceptions or notifications and have that information pre-populated in a message that can be sent to the employee to avoid any confusion and help in resolving outstanding issues. So if you take an example of what I'm sharing on my screen here for Wilton, who hasn't showed up at the assigned time for his shift, or perhaps Mary, who's worked an excessive amount of overtime here, contextual communication can be used to pre-populate messages to the employee to aid in resolving those issues. An example of this communication could lead to a scenario such as this, where the manager now knows that he needs to improve the shutdown process, which can help controlling overtime costs while improving workforce productivity. He also can proactively identify a possible overwork issue that may lead to employee burnout. I also wanted to highlight the ability to reach out to wider audiences more effectively using channels and broadcasts. So broadcasts are useful for top-down announcements that can reach any desired employee group immediately, such as a notification for severe weather. And these messages may be set up to target specific groups of employees or perhaps an entire company. And then also another example of this is channels, which offer targeted group communications based on defined audiences, such as by location, department, team, or perhaps job role. Channels are great for team collaboration, information sharing, pulse surveys, and micro-training on the job. And another example of this may be a feedback channel, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the demonstration. Just having a place to have this information collected in a controlled environment can be valuable to many organizations. Tasks is another area where we've seen an uptick in interest from organizations. And tasks are usually defined as actionable items to an employee or a group of employees where assignment owners can follow up on the status of those tasks. So traditionally, the types of tasks that we see available could include those that require a photo response, a numeric response, a text response, a multiple choice response, or maybe a response that requires an attachment or a document. But for task owners, they should be able to very quickly see both a summary of responses and individual results as they need to for their tasks. And then just the last item I wanted to cover is document sharing. And while this is a pretty straightforward concept, this is another item we've seen a large increase in interest from organizations. So the documents that are available here could be anything from benefits information, safety checklists, or even more generic information such as floor plan layouts and a company map. But what's important is that this information is not only just easily accessible by the employees and your end users, but also easily shareable, which means having the sharing capabilities throughout a platform. So this could be in the examples I showed earlier, such as in the channels, the broadcasts, or even the direct messaging. So hopefully this is just a very quick visual demonstration that gives you a better idea of the types of communications that could be used to appropriately engage your frontline workers.
Thank you, Brian. That's a good job done under 4 minutes. I really appreciate that. And so now we can, because the time constraints, so yeah, maybe I'll put on. We can't really do an in-depth product demo, but if anyone is interested to learn more about the products or want to see a customized demo, we would like to actually pull up a poll to, to collect your interest if you want to see more, or this is okay. You got a taste of what operational communication is, or you maybe want to read some more information before you can decide whether you need to see a full in-depth product demo. So if you want to put your answer there, my question is, would you like to see a customized demo of workforce software product related to today's webinar? There's three options to pick from, yes or no, or you would like to see more information on this topic first. I also just want to mention is when you registered for the webinar, there are some supporting resources that have been provided to you. There's one is employee experience guide, and another one is our annual workplace experience gap study, which have a lot of interesting, insightful findings. You might want to have a look. And then we have very practical activation guide to help you get started with your work, with your employee experience initiatives. So that has some very step-by-step guidance for you to take and utilize.
And just a reminder for everyone, there was a question right at the start asking if this video would be archived. I believe the response was this should be available within 24 hours on the website. So if you want to go back and rewatch or redigest some of the information shared today, you'll have that ability to do so.
Thank you, Brian. We probably didn't leave much time for questions, but I did have the one question that submitted before the webinar, which is about operational communication. I hope that answered or give you an overview of what it looks like. Thank you very much for everyone for your time, and thank you for your attendance. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And
Thanks,
we
everyone.
might send out a follow-up email that if you want to see more or want to have further discussion or see a demo, let us know. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today.
All right. Thank you so much, Angelina and Brian. Excellent presentation and showcase there. Thank you so very much. And please note, everyone on the call, your feedback is so important to us. So I placed a link in the chat area, and whenever I close out the session, it's going to open in a new browser, a brief survey. Your feedback's important to us, so just take a moment to fill that out. And for those of you who have been watching this via live stream on any of our social channels, if you would like to get the HRCI and SHRM credit, by all means, it has been mentioned, this is going to be archived right now, and you can check it out in the HR.com archives. And the HRCI and the SHRM credit, for those of you who attended here, that will be in your account within 2 business days, and we'll send you an email with your credit information. And then a note, there is in the chat area, when they were mentioning, Brian and Angelina were mentioning the resources, the slides and any resources, they are available on that link. And that is also there attached when you're viewing the archive. Again, thanks and take great care, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.